Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
You really want to agree with things that this shit happens and you're like, holy shit, what the fuck is wrong with the world? Oh, peace in our time. Yeah. Hashtag Ultron was right. Oh, okay, well on that note, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is Steve Baxi.
Hello.
And Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life.
What up, bitch?
Oh, well that was a little rude, I think. I think you should apologize to our listeners, calling them a bitch. What the fuck is wrong with you, Rasco?
Nah, man, they deserve it.
Okay then.
I always admire Rasco's commitment to jokes.
Yeah. Even at his own expense. In any case, before we get into this week's episode, I want you, the listener, to know you can download episodes of Geeky Gentlemen, listen on the go. There's a link in the description to download this episode. You can download old episodes by request. Check out the Geeky Gentlemen playlist. Leave a comment on an old episode. It will be uploaded for your listening pleasure. So yeah, listen to Geeky Gentlemen in the car, while exercising, or blast it through as a method of torture for captive people. That being said, Rasco, what are we reviewing today?
Today, we're reviewing Prisoners.
Yeah. Steve was asking me this earlier. Does anyone have any idea how to pronounce the director's last name?
Denis Villeneuve.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
It's Denis Villeneuve.
Denis
Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Okay.
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. Okay.
I think it's French or something like that. So
It's probably French. I can't pronounce shit. I'm bad at this.
let's call him DV. Just call him DV.
Alright.
DV for short.
If you've ever seen any pictures of him, he's got like grayed hair and a grayed mustache. He's always got like these awesome sunglasses on. DV is totally what he goes by.
Yeah. What you're saying is he looks very French.
Yes.
Okay, well, anyway. So yeah, this 2013 film, Jake Gyllenhaal, who oddly enough looks like Colin Farrell in Fantastic Beasts, and Hugh Jackman. So, I want to establish, we didn't really plan to be reviewing a Hugh Jackman movie the week Logan came out.
And we also didn't plan to review the movie that has his other best performance of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, everyone knows how Steve feels about Logan.
Logan is brilliant. It is the third best comic book film of all time. I fucking love it.
How many times have you seen it so far?
Just the once.
I saw
Okay.
it today as well. I enjoyed it. It was very good.
Cool.
No spoilers.
All right.
Anyway.
We're not here to review Logan, but I do find it amusing that this ended up happening. Okay, so I always start with this question, and Rasco always has the best answers. Rasco, what made you want to review this?
Well, I always have like a short list of like movies that I like don't want to forget about that I like really need to watch. And so Blade Runner being one of my favorite movies, I was like, I need to go through all of DV's films and check them out. I had seen Arrival when it came out in theaters. I really like Arrival. I'd seen Sicario, and so this was like on like my short list of movies to watch because of Blade Runner. And so I quickly was like, crap, gotta go watch Prisoners. I put it. Oh, also Jake Gyllenhaal. He's probably my favorite actor. I think he's earned that. I think he's my favorite actor. And so I was like, fuck, I gotta watch this movie now for twice the amount of reasons. And so I checked it out, and it was just a great film. So
Okay.
that's why I picked
All
it.
right. Cool. Steve, you kind of tipped your hat. What do you think of this movie?
I really, really like it. It's one of those things where, like, there are deep and interesting themes in it, but as I'm watching it and as I talk about it, those aren't the things I care about. There is, like, this really great, raw, emotional edge to the movie all the way through, and that always keeps me hooked. If I remember correctly, when I made my list of, like, the best films of 2013, this was on there. I remember seeing this when it came out, but I hadn't seen it since. But no, I really love it. I also love Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor, and this is also my second favorite Hugh Jackman performance of all time. When he's got that scene in the car yelling at Gyllenhaal, it's one of my favorites. It's fantastic. I like a lot of things about it. I have qualms here and there. They're not big enough for me to be calling them problems, and I also don't know if they really are problems, but they're probably worth talking about as this goes on.
Yeah, we gotta review this thing for at least an hour, so I imagine. Okay, well, shit, I guess this is gonna happen. This is alright.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
It was good. It was alright. It kind of felt like a 2-hour episode of Monk, but without the charm, and just, like, a lot more fucking depressing.
Good.
I don't know, like, maybe you two, maybe I'm alone here, but did either of you two figure it out before we get, like, an explanation?
It's weird. This is one of those movies where I've seen it twice. I only saw it, actually, okay, I saw part of it when it came out, and then I saw the full movie only pretty recently, and it was one of those things where, for some reason, I kind of feel like I had it in my head, but I couldn't really say whether or not I knew it or not until the very end, and I was like, okay, I just don't know if I was aware that was what was going to happen by the end or not. Like, it's one of the things where maybe at some point I had heard the twist said out loud. Maybe I hadn't. I'm not really sure. It's weird. The mind is a tricky thing. It plays tricks on you. It's what you know and don't know. I don't know.
I mean, because I can tell you, I knew that it was going to be connected to the body that's found in the beginning of the movie when the Taylor guy opens his door and we see the mazes on his room. I'm like, okay, it's going to be connected to that body. He's gonna see he's gonna see the necklace again, because I remember seeing the necklace. They linger on it. He's gonna see the necklace again, and then they're gonna, it's gonna be a whole thing connected to that. And then after the dude kills himself and Alex in the bathtub says mazes, I'm like, oh, the lady's been talking about her husband being gone. It's her. The dead body was her husband, and it's her that kidnapped the kids. I figured that out not halfway through, but earlier than I feel they wanted me to. Steve, how about you?
I don't remember what it was like the first time. I knew going in watching it the second time for this review earlier today, I knew she was it, but I don't remember what I thought the first time. I do agree with you though that, like, I feel like once you know it's her, it gets really obvious, and then I guess if you're paying enough attention, then it's really obvious anyway. At the same time though, I appreciate the mystery all the way up to it. Most of my problems with the movie do kind of just come down to, like, the tactile mystery itself and her. Like,
yeah,
I don't like her motivation.
Yeah, that is so tacked on, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like it's really out of nowhere. It's really fucking generic. Like, of course that's what it is.
What's funny about it is it's very Satanist. And, like, we always hear these stories, if you like to follow the whole serial killer culture like I did when I was a teenager. You hear these stories about Satanist cults and everything, but they've been completely disproven. There's, like, not... last time I looked into it, it's been years. There's not a single documented case of a Satanist cult or anything like it outside of the Night Stalker, who only puts Satanist imagery in his killings after people started to say that he was working for Satan.
Hey, if you read the Satanic Bible, it's actually pretty legit and well written and pretty moral and ethical. So.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things. So it's like it's a thing that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
People committing murders in the name of Satan. So it's just I just find that part of it amusing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought the motivation was pretty weak. I was really hoping for some other kind of motivation.
Here's the thing, though. Like, it's dumb motivation. At the same time, though, I feel like it's almost necessary with the way the movie is playing through. Because, like, there's... The very first words in this movie is a prayer. And then that same prayer and similar prayers are echoed throughout the movie. And, like, there is definitely this really interesting idea being placed of, like... Because if you really listen to the wording of that prayer and you see the way that this movie plays out, prayer is essentially begging God to don't fuck up your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously some people disagree with that, but like I think for the case of this movie, it really reads to me like anytime you're asking God for anything, you're basically saying, please, whatever you do, don't screw me over. And then throughout the movie, that's kind of the only thing that happens to anyone, is that they constantly get screwed over. And so, like, in some way, shape, or form, I feel like her motivation had to be religious, angry at religion in nature, almost like True Detective. And so, like, I think thematically all that stuff really works. It's just, by the time you get to the end, it feels like it's really dragged on.
Yeah, and then there's, like, the thematic stuff is interesting, and I probably wouldn't really care that much about her reasoning. I mean, it's fiction. You're allowed to make fictitious reasons for killing people. To quote the Joker from a fan film, coming up with excuses for killing people is a waste of time that could be spent killing people. But regardless of all that, that stuff, that side of it, like, it certainly piqued me, but it didn't really do much to sway me one way or the other. The thing that really got me was the portrayal of Alex, and I was really on the fence, verging on uncomfortable the whole time I was watching him.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrifying for a while.
Not just that it's terrifying, I just wasn't sure what they were trying to do or say with him, particularly because it's you know, he's supposed to be innocent, but at the same time, we see him choke that fucking dog.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about the way in which he was portrayed, and not to get all SJWE, but to get all SJWE. I don't know. It verged on a little bit of ableism to me.
I can agree with that. I think part of it is I liked the notion of no one in this movie like gets away clean at all. And then it's more and more disturbing for him because he gets fucked over in ways he can't even understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it terrifying and interesting. The ableism thing, though, is there, and I feel like they never come back to him, and he's sort of like an emotional device for the other characters before he's a character in his own right.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a criticism and another thing I don't love about the movie. At the same time, though, that emotional plot device and the way we see Hugh Jackman descend into horrible human being and then fatalistically probably die at the end of the movie trapped underground, that's pretty satisfying and awful.
No, I don't think he dies. I think he goes to prison.
I don't know. I like the notion of he's just trapped underground and he dies.
Well, no, then why's the scene with the whistle there?
I think he's blowing the whistle and Loki hears it. I don't think they ever find him, though.
I don't know. I think
I like the idea of a plea for help, but then he dies in a similar way to how he locked Alex up, except he gets punished for it.
Fair enough. I don't know. I assumed that they found him after that. I guess they do end it ambiguously enough, but I feel like if you weren't going to come away with the message of he is found, then you would have ended it after what's his face, Jake Gyllenhaal, turned around and decided it was nothing before he heard it that last time, and then it cuts to black.
That's fair.
Maybe that's just me.
I'm reading so much of the movie as just fatalist in nature, though, so, like, I almost like it better if he never gets found, and then there's something inherently horrifying about the dude just being trapped underground with his kid's whistle, not knowing whether or not they're alive or dead.
Yeah, I have to wonder whether or not, like, Officer Loki trusts himself, like, whether or not he is, like, am I just, like, even when he hears it, I still have this, like, weird, thought in the back of my head, like, I imagine that he could possibly just convince himself it's nothing and leave. Like, I really do think that's within his, like, mind.
Again, no, not after that final turn.
Okay, maybe.
After that, if he doesn't find Hugh buried under there, and Hugh's blowing the whistle the whole night, then he is out there, like, especially the way that this guy talks about how determined he is, and how much of a perfectionist he is. He's out there all night digging up the ground himself.
I think that's a fair read. I don't think it's the only read, though.
I don't know. There's so much of this character that's, like, admittedly, we don't see a ton of it, but that would be because it'd be boring film to just see someone waiting around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, he sat in a damn interrogation room, or on the other side of an interrogation room for 3.5 hours watching a guy draw a maze. You really think that if he hears a whistle, he's not going to go looking around the grounds for it?
But see, I think he's a different person by the end of the movie. I don't think that perfectionist thing has the same sort of hold on him by the end.
I wouldn't agree with that at all. I think that very much the whole detective thing of the need to look for more clues and find connections that no one else sees, I think that he's validated by the end of this.
I'm not saying he's not validated. I'm just saying that on an emotional level, it's not something he wants to force himself through continuously after what's happened.
I might be able to agree with you, but if it had ended when he, like, decided it was nothing and was about to walk away, but again, there's that last toll of the whistle, and then he turns with that look of realization to the camera right before it cuts to black. I have to believe that maybe Hugh isn't found, but I know this character is there looking all night.
Okay.
I cannot buy for a second that he is.
That's fair. I can buy that he would look for him, but at the same time, though, I think it works. For me, at least, it works better if Hugh Jackman's never actually found. I think the way the movie reads to me thematically, he's got to live underground and die.
That's fair. Kind of. I don't know. I'm thinking of the whole religious subtext and trying to think of the idea of penance.
And that's why I say that, though. Like, I feel like by the end of the movie, there is kind of a divine punishment for him. Because the movie opens with him teaching his kid how to kill a deer. There is a whole thing of, like, he's descending lower and lower into madness. I feel like the ethical descent is then paralleled in the end with, like, the literal structural descent underground. And just like he took a life in the beginning of the movie, he dies at the end of the movie.
Okay. I can see that. I guess for me, so much it isn't about Hugh Jackman's character as it is Jake Gyllenhaal's.
That's fair. They're co-protagonists. They're both interesting and important in different ways.
Yeah, it really plays like a novel. Does anybody else think that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this based on anything?
I don't know, but it could be. But I don't think so. As far as I'm aware, it's not.
Check it
Okay.
really quick. No, it is not.
Alright, and for me, like, the thematic stuff I do like quite a bit. It's that I called the mystery so early on. I've talked about this before on the show, but film has an advantage over every other art form in the way in which you can do a mystery story. Because if it's a book, if it's comics, whatever it is, and you need to show a clue, if it's a novel, you have to talk about the clue and try to make sure that you set up that your character knows about it, that your reader will actually remember the clue, but not call so much attention to it that your reader is able to figure out, oh, look at this really important piece of information. With a comic, you can show a clue, which is nice, but because you don't control the pacing necessarily, there are tricks you can do, but if your reader wants to stare at a panel, there's nothing you can do to stop them. So if you can show a clue in a panel, but there's no controlling how long your reader sees it for. Whereas a film, you can show a clue and have it just go away. And it's there to be caught if your reader catches it, if your watcher catches it, but if not, they missed it. And yet it's set up still. It's this great little device for mystery that's very specific to film. There's nothing else that works for it like film does. It shows you the necklace on the corpse. It shows you, the picture of the husband that left him, and you do see in that first shot of that picture, there's something around his neck. It shows you the maze designs on the guy's walls. It also doesn't help that, like Rasco told me to go into this knowing as little as possible. The poster gave away that the maze designs are going to be important.
Fair, yeah.
So, like, all of that just, as soon as I saw that necklace on the guy, I mean, to be fair, it's a fucking body is found in the first act of the film. Obviously, it's going to be important later, no matter how much they try to bury it. Pun intended, I suppose. Obviously, like, then... I guess my biggest problem is that scene where they find the body in the basement. 'Cause it literally has nothing to do with anything else until it has everything to do with everything else. It is like such it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just so inherently obvious that you're watching a mystery and that this body is going to be important later.
Really? See, my thing was, I felt like, okay, because this movie does this, almost, I don't want to say hyper-realism, but it does this weird kind of, especially, you can see this in the cinematography, where it doesn't look like modern-day movies. Something that you notice about, like, modern-day movies is, like, they have, like, very shallow depth of field, and, like, the backgrounds are blurred, and this movie is really different. It's, like, it's just everything is very clean, very flat, very straight up right there in front of you. And it looks like almost exactly like real life. Mm-hmm. And that scene to me, I thought while watching it, I really was convinced that wasn't going to be relevant because I was like, oh, this is supposed to work with that idea that this movie is just very exactly like your life, exactly like your town, wherever you live. And that this is like, when you take one step deeper, behind the lines, behind like the facades of society, it gets really creepy, really scary, really fast, and it's a lot darker than anyone expects. And that's what I thought was going on there. Like, he's going around to people that are obviously like sex offenders, right? And so, like, that scene kind of brings up like, look, these people are everywhere. And then that scene was like, and this is a random murder that has nothing to do with this, that just happened and exists, and that's how creepy your world is as well, because these kind of things exist all around you.
Yeah, but then they call attention to it later when they're like, oh, he said he was in a war against God, and we've already had a lot of religious subtext put in this movie so far. Again, maybe it's on me. Maybe I've watched too much Monk and Psych over the years. I don't know. I thought it stuck out like a sore thumb. So the mystery side of it, I figured it out pretty quick because Haley was sitting there watching it with me, and she's like, "So, like, what's going on?" And I go, "Nah, the guy the dead body that was found earlier was the lady's husband, and she's the one that kidnapped the girls, not the boy." She's like, "What? How?" So I know she didn't get it, but I don't know. I did. It's leaving too many breadcrumbs, as I guess would be my problem with the mystery side of it.
Well, do you think you were like... Is this one of those movies that, like, for the first few minutes you were pretty sucked into what it is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't have any problems with the pacing necessarily. I mean, it is a little long, and you could maybe do without a couple of the torture scenes, but I don't want to get into splitting hairs like that.
Because I kind of mean, like, the mystery details sort of fade for me because as I'm watching it is a very visceral experience.
Maybe, but there's such a focus on following the detective as he tries to figure this all out, right?
See, I don't know. The detective is figuring out, and that's interesting, and that's there. I feel like the detective finding the mystery is not quite as important as what happens to everyone as the mystery continues to unravel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the mystery matters anywhere near as much as what Hugh Jackman's character is doing the whole movie.
Yeah, no,
the mystery's almost not even... The mystery almost doesn't matter to him until the very end. It's just the idea of the situation that makes the movie interesting.
Yeah, because
that's fair.
It becomes at least pretty obvious that he's made a mistake and that Alex really doesn't know either anything or nearly as much as Hugh Jackman thinks that he knows, and that it's really you've made a mistake, but you've already committed way too much, and you've already crossed the line in too many ways, and now it's kind of this, you just like feel this utter sense of like, oh god, like this just can't end well now, like this has just gone too far in one direction and it can't end well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, those are the scenes that, again, I don't know if bothered's the right word, because it's obviously meant to be fucked up and to bother you. I don't know. The scenes with Alex are really... What's the word I want? Steve, say something smart.
Shit, I don't know. The scenes with if you mean specifically the scenes with Alex, I think part of what they are is they're really, the torture's like really obvious and really creepy because of that. Like, the one that bothered me the most is turning on the hot water.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about the simplicity of that, and then the other one where Jackman has him up against the wall and he's going to threaten to crush his fingers with a hammer, and he never hits him.
Yeah.
Like, there's... And both of them in Jackman's performance, there's a clear descension into madness for him that makes those scenes even more uncomfortable. Because this is a guy... And because there's lots of really interesting parallels between him and then, again, the religious subtext. Like, he's a carpenter, he opens the movie with a prayer, he's the one praying...
He's kind of like anti-Jesus.
Yeah, like, the Jesus allegories and stuff are all there. And so, like, to get his constant descent into madness, and then at the same time have him kind of recognize that in disturbing ways, and almost to the point where, like, he's tired of doing what he's doing, but he can't for some reason stop it. Stuff like that, like, legitimately bothered me. Like, there's something about, like, if this was my kid, and I wouldn't know this because I'm not a parent or anywhere close to that, but, like, if this was my kid, I don't know how far away from that I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he's an awful person, but how much of that is his fault?
Exactly. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this goes back to Alex choking the dog. This movie has this thing where you have people that, you know, if these things hadn't been forced upon them, they would have lived probably a completely normal, happy life, and it would have been A-okay, right? A perfectly moral person can be absolutely a horrifying monster in the course of a few days if the right circumstances come about. And it's one of those things where it's good people, well, at least
Everybody read The Killing Joke.
it's at least good people, maybe, because they're capable of doing this. Was it always in their character, or is it just really tragic circumstance? But also that kind of plays into Alex choking the dog, because he's a kid who's kidnapped, and we don't know what kind of things he probably went through as a young child who was kidnapped, and so he's a good person with maybe some creepy sadistic tendencies that, you know, at the end of the day, it's him choking that dog, but, like, why would he be choking that dog is the question. Like, it's probably something deeper than that. Maybe. We don't know, and it's not really important.
Well, yeah, I mean, that they get to that with the first questions that Hugh Jackman starts asking Jake Gyllenhaal. He's like, if he was innocent, why would he run? And, yeah, that's kind of that's everyone's go-to with these situations, but there is an inherent logic to that when you try to take the stance of the person who's the victim of a crime. If they're innocent, why would they run? Well, you can't think about the fact that, like, just the very basic level of this kid obviously has mental illness. Well, if he's got this illness, why could he be driving? Because those two aren't necessarily exclusive, right?
Yeah.
But, again, those connections aren't made, and this is... I mean, it's certainly believable ableism. I worked at Goodwill for 7 years. The place where where the people, like, the mission of Goodwill is to provide opportunities for people with disabilities. That includes both physical and mental. And I worked with someone who was autistic and who was very much crossing a social line that is fundamentally unacceptable. And I told my manager about this, and you know what his response was? Well, he has a condition. It doesn't fucking matter. There are still lines. And so we get into this way of how people perceive things. It's like they are told, they are conditioned to believe this, and this about people with mental illness, but then when push comes to shove, when they're put on the spot, those, like, lines contradict themselves, and they don't know how to separate how to separate their feelings towards someone who could have possibly done an action or who did do a certain action of questionableness and reconcile it in the window of someone who has mental illness. And so all that stuff's really interesting. And you're right, Rasco, it is all about how he was brought up, which is why by the end of the movie, I was kind of like, okay, he's not an innocent, good person or whatever, but it's certainly not his fault that he ended up this way. Again, it's at the same time, it's that we're being led down this rabbit hole of, here's this guy who's, like, portrayed as mentally handicapped and having done this horrible thing, and at times the implication is because he is mentally handicapped or because he is pretending to be, or he's exploiting that. And so the implications there that are set up in order to create drama are inherently meant to prey on preconceived underlying biases and stereotypes of the mentally ill. And I find that part I don't know how I feel about. I don't know how comfortable I am with something that plays with those so much, because one, it does admittedly create very engaging, very drawing fiction, but at the same time, it's doing it in such a way that I don't feel like people get it. I feel like the vast majority of people that watch this are going to buy into the same thing Hugh Jackman is, and I don't know if they're going to learn the lesson by the end of it that they should.
Here's my thing with it, though. I don't think it's painting a narrative about how mentally ill people operate in the world. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't bother me as much, but again, much like what we do with female characters, using a mentally ill character as an emotional catalyst for non-disabled characters is just an inherent problem with how the movie's structured.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go out... I don't want to say, like, that ruins the movie. I think that's an ethical consideration of making the movie and then viewing the movie. But so much of that, with how the movie's made, is in the backseat to Hugh Jackman and most of the time Detective Loki. I feel like because no one's really good by the end of it, there's no glorification of able versus disable. There's nothing negative narratively being painted. It's all very simply about people in context and horrible things in context.
Why do you think Loki isn't triumphant in the end of this? I feel like everything he does is more or less vindicated as far as this movie's concerned, even though I do have problems with the same basic problems that are in a lot of crime dramas with the way he behaves.
Maybe a lot of this is resting on performance before it is on maybe actual scenes, but like by the time I get to the end of the movie, I sort of feel like it's not that Detective Loki was wrong about anything. It's that his commitment to being right was borderline obsessive and self-deprecating. I feel like that's his thing as a character. Like they say early on, he solved every case he's been handed, and I imagine with the way he deals with everything in this movie, that's probably because he gets unhealthily obsessed with everything. Mm-hmm. And like by the end of the movie, I don't know if he's a person willing to do this again.
I don't know. I think that he gets everything that he wanted, but he keeps having to see the ugliest side of the world by doing it.
And see, that's the thing, though. Like, I don't know, particularly with the way Gyllenhaal plays it, I don't know how much more ugly he can see and be sane, or like if he even wants to test that line.
Or if
and
he
then
ever
also
expects something like this will happen again. I don't know if he even, like, I think that he might just kind of think that something like this will never happen again. Like, I beat it, it's done. Like, this kind of thing, this kind of case will never come up again. I think he almost has this, like, weird, naive idea in his head that, like, he'll never have to put himself through this. Like, he would, but it's never going to happen. But it probably will.
That's fair. I don't think Loki, as his name, is coincidental either. I think there's things to be said here for, like, his not only his attention to detail, but, like, the fact that he is embroiled in not only mischief but chaotic situations and stuff like that. That in a lot of ways he operates in a world of Loki being the person that's least like Loki. And I feel like a lot of that psychologically is just, I feel like it's more taxing than we necessarily see scene to scene. I feel like the arc that Jackman goes through is something that he does too, we just don't get as much of it.
Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to watch through it a second time, but I kind of got like he was certainly bothered by all of this, but, you know, the movie, one of the last scenes of the movie is him driving to the hospital. Oh, by the way, that was a stupid scene. But him driving to the hospital with the little girl in the back
seat. I really liked that
scene.
I thought that was awesome.
What? The fact that no one knows what the hell a police siren means?
Well, I mean, okay.
That, I guess just one of those things, like, the leap in logic is so great that I just find it kind of silly.
See, I don't know about that. Like, people ignore police sirens all the time where I live. Like,
really?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
maybe
see
a Midwesterner.
Yeah, I don't really see people, like, making way for cop cars, and then on top of that, like, the way it was shot with all the rain and shit, like, the blood coming out, I thought it was a really well-directed scene. Mm-hmm. And then
certainly. I just find maybe it's just my experience of the world, but anytime there's ever a cop car, people get the fuck over.
I mean, I don't know, I live in Charlotte, the attitude here, at least from the people I know, is pretty substantially fuck the police.
Generally speaking, it's always, like, I will move if I have to. If the cop makes an effort to go around me, I'm not budging at all. That's that's what it seems like. Especially when it's raining. It's like, I'm not gonna fucking get on the brakes and get over in the other lane. Fuck that. Like, it's just kind of like, I will move if I absolutely have to move.
I don't know. Maybe people in Fort Wayne just give a fuck. I don't know.
I mean, you're the state that elected Pence. There might be something there.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, just generally, I've never seen anyone not get out of the way of a cop. That's really funny to me.
And I mean, I don't know. Again, it might just be areas and stuff. When I was living in New Jersey, it was sort of the same thing. Like, no one gave a shit what the police were doing, but that's because everyone in New Jersey is an asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Jersey.
That's totally why you can tell that Steve is from Jersey.
yes, that's exactly why.
Next time someone tells you that you hate everything, just be like, it's not my fault. I was born in Jersey.
Oh my god, that'd be fantastic. There's a Steven Universe joke about New Jersey, and it's hilarious.
Okay, no, I mean, worlds are opening to me then. I just thought it was like a really big contrivance, but apparently I haven't experienced enough of the world.
And to be fair, he's not like in a cop cruiser. He's also in a private car with sirens, and in the middle of a rainstorm, people might just not see him.
True, I don't know. I was kind of laughing at that scene. But no, I mean, he's given the big heroic scene of taking the little girl to the hospital and saving her life at the last possible second after shooting the bad guy. And then the next scene is him in the hospital bed recovering from his injuries, and the little girl is wheeled in safe and sound just to thank her hero. I don't feel like, you know, maybe I need to see it again, but I don't feel like he is at any point to question whether or not he should continue to be a police officer. I feel like he is very much vindicated from his perspective in this movie.
Maybe it's part of like how we're reading that hospital scene, because like, yeah, that's literally what happens, but
I mean, it's certainly got an overtone to it.
It's important. What happened? Okay, here's the thing though, because this movie keeps bringing up this idea of like a good person, bad shit happens, and then they do things without really understanding the others. So like Hugh Jackman thinks he's doing the right thing. At the end of the movie, obviously he was just flat out wrong. He was just completely wrong about his assumptions, so he fucked up. What happens if the girl dies in the car and Officer Loki doesn't get her there in time? What happens to him after that? Because that's where I think he breaks down and he becomes a worse person, maybe even a horrible person, if he doesn't save that girl in the end because of how obsessed he is. And so maybe the idea is that, like, yeah, it's a good thing he saved her, but this guy is really fragile. If he hadn't, who knows if you would want to look at this guy and think of him as a hero in any right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like, and then, like, his police captain is berating him throughout the movie for this. Like, he's got a very persistent personality, but it's always etched in things he can't guarantee happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, like you said, Steve, that is the literal sequence of events, but there's...
Yeah, like the way that scene is shot, the way Gyllenhaal's acting, it reads to me like, hey, daughter is saved. I don't know if that makes anything better, though.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think, I don't know, part of that I think might be more that he knows, like, what her father did,
mm-hmm.
and now he knows that she's going to grow up without a father. Even if he ends up being alive, he's going to jail.
And then there's that very stark parallel of, like, Jackman did all this to find his daughter. In a lot of ways, they're both obsessed. And if Gyllenhaal was in his situation, I don't know, the way he plays it, I don't know if he wouldn't have done the same thing, and I wonder how much that weighs on him.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's a circumstance thing. Like, if he was... He's not emotionally invested, but he is definitely obsessed. And Jackman is emotionally invested, but not detail-obsessed the way he is. And those two personalities thrive off each other really well.
How'd you guys feel about the misdirect of the Taylor character?
Roscoe?
That guy's the creepiest face in the world. I'll throw that out there.
I want to fan cast him as Jonathan Crane.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, you'd be the fucking perfect Scarecrow.
You know he's in The Dark Knight, right?
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's the guy that Harvey Dent kidnaps.
Oh, yeah, he is that guy.
Wow, I just realized that scene is a scene from Prisoners when Harvey Dent kidnaps that guy.
That's a good point.
Uh,
I liked him. I thought it was an interesting misdirect, and I think I again, part of this is that I don't think the mystery matters as much as the character stuff around it. I think part of what made that work is not whether or not it makes enough sense to have that plot twist in the middle of the movie, but more along the lines of now these characters have to confront the fact that maybe this mystery's over and no one gets found. And that scene with Jackman looking through the pictures to see if he recognized anything, like, that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. It's good, but at the same time, I'm like, you really do have to contrive like crazy to get there, right? Like, there's that whole sequence of him breaking into the houses. And I have trouble understanding his logic of needing to have the clothing of these kidnapped children for him to do his fake murders with. It's one of those weird things where, like, I guess I would buy it more if not every other thing in his house was store-bought. Like, I guess what would have worked for me if all the other children's clothes were from other children who were kidnapped or whatever. Like, if they'd made mention of that instead of them all being store-bought, if every single one of the clothing items that he had were from other kidnapped children, then, like, it would have made more sense, because he would have been breaking into all these houses all along just to, you know, feel like he was a part of these murders. If that makes sense. I don't know. I just thought that it was maybe a little convenient that this was the only time he ever broke into the house of someone.
How many, do they ever mention, like, how many children have gone missing?
16.
Okay.
The priest says it very early on. He kidnapped 16 children or something like that. But no, just like the misdirect feels like it's well timed, because it did throw me from where I was starting to go with the movie. I was like, oh, okay, I guess this was the guy all along. It was well timed, but I don't know. The more I think about it, it feels a little contrived.
That's fair. I don't know. I love noir movies, and noir movies almost always have nonsensical plots to the point where, like, noir and spy movies have this thing where, like, the plot goes from point A to point B, but the way they go about getting from A to B, you never really understand the steps, you just kind of go with it. So, stuff like that doesn't bother me as much. I'm not saying it's not a problem, it's just so much of that is on the back burner of my thinking as I'm watching this movie.
I guess that we're at this weird point where you're focused more on the thematic and character development stuff, which I will agree with you is interesting and is the real meat of the movie that's worth looking into. I'm kind of held up by the plot.
That's fair, yeah.
That's where I am. Like, and we've talked about this with King's Batman, right? Where, like, I totally understand when someone just can't quite suspend disbelief enough. I understand that, but I feel like you should try to look at thematic, look past plot to thematic stuff too, and you will hopefully have a better understanding of the story, not necessarily that you will still like it. I agree with you, Steve. The thematic and plot stuff is really interesting. I just can't help but be hung up on the plot. Which
is fair, because like you said, you're coming from this from, like, watching a shit ton of Psych and Monk and stuff, so, like, the nature of the mystery matters more to you.
Yeah, I mean, I for a long time, mystery was my favorite genre, and now it's more like sci-fi kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love, you know, good murder mystery thing, and I don't know, I was kind of excited to talk about that here, and I don't know. It was a bit of a letdown. It certainly was no lucky number 11.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, that's a lot of the thing I want to talk about when I mentioned like qualms with the movie early on. Is just that I don't know if the plot holds together from point A to point B. But I say qualm instead of problem because it doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
The religious imagery, a lot of those parallels, Jackman's performance in particular are the things that get me through this all the way. And then also just like really good subtleties with like how he treats his neighbors and how they react to having their daughter back and him not having his, the thing with his son, pretending to be a drunk and then being accused of actually being one. Like there's lots of really interesting touches to his character that make him feel absolutely alive.
Yeah, I love every scene where he's just flat out lying to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's just playing up a character. That's great.
Yeah, I really love the scene where he's trying to do the prayer and he cannot say, "As we forgive those who trespass against us."
Yep.
That's probably the best scene in the movie.
I agree. This is one of those movies that apparently the script was floating around for years, and lots of actors and lots of directors and stuff were attached to it. Having seen it the way it is, maybe it's a bit unfair, but like, I don't know another actor that could have pulled off this as well as Gyllenhaal and Jackman do. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's a genuine raw emotional nerve with the way Jackman plays his roles that I don't see another actor getting. Maybe Christian Bale?
I don't know. I'm just gonna make my joke that maybe Colin Farrell could have played Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
I love Colin Farrell. I wish he was in everything.
It's just really funny because he's got that same buzz cut that Colin Farrell has in Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
And it's just like especially when he covers up his mouth, he really looks like Colin Farrell in this. It's really funny. It was kind of distracting. I don't know. Silly stupidness. Ignore me.
I'm just flipping through the wiki here. Apparently this movie won a lot of awards for makeup. I don't understand why.
I guess the bruising on Alex?
Oh, yeah, that's probably what it is.
Okay, yeah. I guess I could see that.
Alright. Does anyone have any guesses what the hell she was making him drink?
It was purple, so it might be like some codeine. It might be like, I don't know. I gotta imagine there's some codeine in there if it's purple.
I don't know. Kids were apparently drinking it too.
Yeah.
They say that they were drugged. I just don't know with what.
I don't know. If you ever get like a upper respiratory infection, there's all sorts of these kind of like weird syrupy purple medicines that you can get, and you drink them and they just make you like high and like kind of like drunk, intoxicated, and like you kind of like lose your coordination. I imagine it's like some of that stuff mixed with something else.
Okay, that's cool. I hate to keep going back to the plot stuff, but again, this is what I'm drawn to about this, and just having seen it one time, this is all I can think of about it. Another major contrivance is Joy escaping. That seems to come out of nowhere. And like, I don't know if this movie could end the way it does without that.
What is she, like? Does she give some crucial information that leads him back to that house?
Yeah, she says that she saw him there.
Oh.
So, without her escaping, then he doesn't start running from the cops don't find Alex, blah, blah, blah. Or not necessarily, but you know.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It's another contrivance. See?
And again, like, this lady's been doing this for years and years, and, like, this kid's drugged, and she still is able to run away. I mean, like,
and again,
don't get me wrong. I understand she's an old lady, but I'm pretty sure she can chase down a child.
And again, you're right, but then my initial reaction is like, well, I wasn't thinking about the kid getting captured. I was thinking about now Jackman's friend has their kid back, and he's even more, like, in between distraught and excited, and that performance nuance is fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it's exactly what he both needs and doesn't need at the exact same time. It's like
Yeah, like when he's trying to interrogate her in the hospital bed, like there's just so much going on in that performance that I don't think about the plotting issue.
I mean, seriously, I didn't think of it till just like 10 seconds ago. It's just, I'm thinking about the movie, and I can't get past plot.
That's fair. I
mean, that's where I am with it.
That's fair. I feel like that's enough to, like, make it a legitimate problem with the movie, that the mystery itself is contrived to all hell, it seems.
I wouldn't necessarily say all hell. I mean, I've seen, like, I'm sitting here acting like Monk is the gold standard for mystery writing. It's certainly not.
Psych is, obviously.
What?
Psych is, obviously.
Obviously!
There's a pineapple in every episode. If you can find them, you are the genius.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, like, it's just, there are plenty of contrived-ass mysteries and stuff, and a contrivance in and of itself is not a problem. But it's that there are multiple contrivances. It's that I don't necessarily believe that all these things were presented in a effective manner from a film perspective. I'm just stuck on some of the stuff that I'm like, I see the themes, I know they're there, but it's like I'm trying to think of a really, really fun metaphor for this. It's like getting to sleep with a hot chick, but first you gotta talk to her ugly friend. That's where I'm at with this movie. I've got to have a really in-depth conversation with her ugly friend, and I'm just like, I just don't know if it's going to be worth it, guys.
I love how that joke's like a complete 180 from, like, your earlier hesitation to make a social justice warrior type criticism.
Oh, it totally is, right?
It really is. It's hilarious.
Well, I don't know. Like, I'm never going to feel bad about calling some people unattractive. Here's the thing. I can call you unattractive. It does not make you a bad person. There we go. My social justice warrior, internal social justice warrior is satisfied.
I was just going to say, you can call someone unattractive, but that doesn't mean they're unattractive to someone else.
Yeah, that too. I don't know. It's a whole thing, but
no. I see where you're coming from with the plot thing. I think it's fair. I think a lot of it is there's weird motivational things that exist for these characters that are there for the themes, but also are kind of tacked on. Like when you get to the old lady and you reveal why she's doing her thing, and then like the priest earlier in the movie, like there's lots of motifs being built, but there are also lots of characters being created just to juggle those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could maybe have trimmed that down and not lose any thematic depth, but still bolstered the plot a little bit. I will say it is maybe a half hour too long in the sense that the plot should have been resolved sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I didn't enjoy that last half hour. It's just that if it was better plotted, it may not have been this long.
I'd agree with you there. Because again, I just don't know. Like, okay, not only is there a scene where we find a dead body and then it only comes up one more time until it becomes important, but like the way he gets to find the dead body is so over the top to me.
Really?
He goes knock on the guy's door, guy doesn't answer, he goes and looks in the window, sees that he's collapsed on the ground. That's how he gets access to the house and is able to look around unblocked. And that's how he finds the dead body. Again, it's so many gimmies, right? Where's that Batman vs Superman gimme counter at?
That's still one of my favorite jokes.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just all that. That being said, though, let's talk about another element that maybe this is Ian's social justice warrior night. We see this a lot in police dramas, so this is by no means a problem with this movie only. It's just kind of symptomatic of a larger thing. But the whole idea of cops doing things that we have all more or less agreed it's not okay for cops to do, but we're kind of shown it in this movie, and because we're sympathizing with these characters and this cop, it makes it okay in our heads. That being, entering houses without warrants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
well, see, here's the thing, though. Like,
suspects.
I don't have as much of a problem with that because no matter what moral compass a protagonist of a film has, or any fiction has, if they are the protagonist, on some level, the structure of the thing has to work so that we sympathize with them. So you can make the Joker the lead of a comic. That doesn't work unless in some ways we care about the Joker. So I don't think Loki doing things that are clearly ethically wrong are skated under the rug, because I think the point is, yeah, he's a bad person.
Okay. And I mean, it builds into his whole obsessive character, but it's, again, we see this a lot in cop drama stuff.
Yeah.
Where someone's running away and the cop shoots them in the back. And when we see video of that happening in real life, we're like, what the fuck? That's not okay. But then we see it in movies all the time, movies and shows all the time, and it's like, yeah, good job.
And I absolutely agree with you. I think the difference, though, is in other cop pieces we treat that as triumph, and this one we treat it as it didn't make anything better, it just made the person worse.
True.
Yeah, and there's also some sort of like dichotomy there with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. They're both going over the line, and it's almost kind of like, I almost feel like it's trying to get you to like maybe question your own your own assumptions. So like, you're watching both people abuse their power. Hugh Jackman doesn't really have any sort of legal power, but he has the physical power. He's just this big hulking badass who can kidnap you and beat the shit out of you. Jake Gyllenhaal has this kind of like legal status that almost tricks you into thinking that the things that he's doing, unless you're really aware of this kind of stuff, that like you're almost like, oh yeah, this is just what he's doing. He's investigating. This is what he's doing. And then if you take a step back and you're like, actually, wait a second, none of this would be okay. And within the context of the movie, I still don't think it's okay. Like I don't even think the movie thinks it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think that needs to be something we see more often, where like a cop goes over the line, and because of that, even if the person is guilty, they get away with what they've done because the cop violated the rules. And then like, I think there's some of that here, but not nearly enough. There is something interesting that could be done with, okay, the cop violated the rules, so the person walks free, and now a third party gets involved and takes it even further and becomes worse for it. I don't know. I think that there's interesting commentary in something like that, and we kind of get it. They try to bend the rules, but the kid is let free, and then Hugh Jackman takes action into his own hands, which is his whole character thing. It's set up nicely in the beginning of the movie. He's a fucking doomsday prepper. There's his whole character thing of, well, you got to be prepared for everything. You got to do it yourself. And he takes the law into his own hands, and it ends horrifically for him. Not just because he ends up dead in a ditch, but because he kidnaps and tortures somebody. And just is so damn stubborn about it that he won't even admit what he's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
He actively builds a torture cell where he cannot see the person he is torturing to make it easier for him to torture them. That's really fucked up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think there's something to be said there.
Culturally, it doesn't help that we have so much fiction where the police are the good guys and procedural cop dramas and stuff, to the point where it verges on, like, propaganda.
Yeah.
And that is a huge problem. In this movie, I feel like, though, it's one of those things where, like, not only is no one clean, but, like, no one's happy, nothing's actually fixed. It's to the point where, like, even if Loki was a worse person and was reprimanded for it, it wouldn't alter the fact that everyone in this movie in some way, shape, or form is worse off.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it work for me. At the same time, though, I can turn on an episode of, like, I don't even fucking know, like Gotham, and criticize the hell out of it for how glorified it is with police violence.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, to the point where that show is almost a show trying to justify martial law held by the police, and that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that's really tangential to the movie, but it is something I thought of while I was watching it, because...
It's worth talking about, particularly when police are protagonists.
Mm-hmm. There was something else. I can't remember now. Rasco, take us somewhere.
I really like, I mentioned this earlier, I was talking about the cinematography, but I really love the way this movie looks.
Yeah.
It looks so not Hollywood. It looks just so like this could be your town. I also think that DV is just a fucking great director. I mean, like, he is just so up my alley in so many regards. Every single one of his films, they're just so fucking beautiful, and they all have this overwhelming sense of, like, dread that's just, like, it's not, like, anything you're seeing is necessarily dreadful. It's just, like, I feel like really bad things have happened, could happen, or are happening, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I
love the way... I love how ominous the RV is when it's first shown at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's just so unnerving the way that thing's driving around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
When I was talking to a friend earlier about this movie, I said that the movie looks the way I feel on a crappy day. With the color palette, and just kind of like how much the camera hangs on these weird angles where, like, you're not necessarily getting something from someone's perspective, but there's still obstructions and stuff in the view, so it almost looks like someone's watching our characters in almost like a horror movie sadistic fashion. Like, you have shots where, like, someone's walking down the street and the camera's, like, behind a tree and shit. It's really well directed, and it's got very meticulous shot composition to the point where, like, this is not a movie that works on its script. It's almost entirely because of everything else.
Yeah, a lot of it's with the way it's shot and with the performances, I agree.
Yeah, and the score, I really love the score. I like it's just subdued enough to be terrifying when it picks itself up.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't really pick up on the score at all.
I don't know the guy who did it, but it's a really good score. It's something that I kind of like would just listen to whenever, just because I think it sounds eerie.
Nice. Steve just likes to listen to really eerie music.
I do. I think eerie music is fun. Oh, okay, apparently this is the guy who did the music for Theory of Everything, and I like the score to that, too.
Cool. I remember the thing I wanted to talk about. So, alright, finally time to get into Hugh Jackman's character, because we touched on this a little bit, but he's kind of the anti-Jesus, right?
Yep.
Like, right from this first scene in the movie, he's like, yeah, well, you know, something happens, hurricane, earthquake, people will turn and just start taking and be selfish, and so you gotta look out for yourself, and you gotta take care of yourself. You're the only one that's gonna keep you alive. And yet it opened with a fucking prayer.
Yep.
Which is like, that's the complete opposite perspective of Jesus. And that amazes me.
I love that. I love all of the interesting contradictions in his prayer and his actions that kind of meet up with them later when you get to that point where, like, he can't finish his prayer that you were talking about. And then, at least in my interpretation, him dying underground. And then the fact that, like, he's a carpenter, he's got this whole thing with, like, he's got almost what, like, if you've seen Punisher 2004, Punisher near the end of the movie has a line where he says, where he equates what he's doing with what he calls natural justice.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like that's the perfect way to describe how Hugh Jackman must be seeing the things he's doing. Like, I don't think he feels like he needs any more rationalization than someone took my daughter.
Yep.
And that's both endearing and terrifying.
And what's interesting to me is what he is doing is very old world.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't so much related directly to the Christian thing, though obviously what he's doing is not Christian in the slightest, but everything he's doing is so old world. It used to be, you know, who committed this murder? Who was ever the closest at the time? That's just what it used to, like. The murderer was just whoever the cops pinned it on first.
Yep.
If you got arrested, you were it. There was no, like, a trial took 10 minutes. Didn't matter what you said because obviously you weren't going to plead guilty. That was like the whole thing with the way that just this old sense of justice and this idea of stones, stockades, hang 'em. That's very old world justice where it's not concerned with due process or law or compassion or understanding at all. It's concerned with immediate gratification, and an immediate sense of law has been dealt, justice has been dealt, and then if something comes to light to prove that the punishment was meted out incorrectly, maybe you'll be compensated. And so you're right, he is doing this whole natural justice thing of, you know, going for the first person that he just knows did it. Never mind that he's clearly not thinking rationally. Everyone tells him that, and he's like, no, we know he did it. He said something to me. It doesn't matter the circumstances surrounding him. It's that Hugh Jackman knows this had to be him. He's completely emotionally compromised, and I don't know. Again, his whole thing of he believes in God very, very deeply, obviously, but he does not act in accordance with those beliefs.
Yeah,
he believes in protecting his family, which is just an extension of himself.
And
for others.
He proves his own advice, right? Like, you mentioned the thing about him saying that, like, whenever something bad happens, everyone's going to turn on each other and you have to protect yourself. That's kind of exactly what he does. Something bad happens, and he went to shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a very... And maybe this isn't intentional. It's definitely not intentional. The first scene with him... Ever since then, my head's like, this dude's a libertarian.
Well, it's funny. He's got like a gas mask down in his basement and stuff. He's a prepper.
Yeah, like he's totally Ron Swanson gone over the edge.
And yeah, I don't know. Like that's something in real life that always fascinates me. And, you know, we're seeing this develop right now in the real world where there's like a ban, or the government is enforcing a ban on people for their religion. Don't pretend it's anything else. And so, and it's the party that always tries to tote itself up as being, you know, classic Christian values. But it's like, guys, Jesus specifically said not to do this. I don't know what else to say at that point. It's like, do you need me to read the Bible to you? I don't know what I'm doing here.
It's that meme I love where like Jesus is like, love thy neighbor, and then the people are like, what if they're gay or Muslim or black? And then Jesus is like, did I stutter?
Yeah. So I don't know, just like that whole the inherent hypocrisy of the superior is something that always amazes me. And I don't know, it's interesting to see that really drawn out and taken here.
I would, and I'm not the person for this, because I'm an atheist, but like, I would love to see someone make like a theological critique of this movie from like maybe a Christian perspective where he goes wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, I think like something like that could be legitimately interesting to look into.
I've seen one for the movie Silence, and it was really fucking cool.
Is that the Scorsese movie that just came out a few months ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I have not seen that
He
yet.
keeps doing movies, but he's not doing a Punisher movie.
Well, we're getting a Punisher TV show, so...
Well, let Scorsese direct the pilot or something. I don't know. I just find that whole contradiction of his character really interesting because it totally dawns on him that he's a hypocrite.
Yep.
He's not in denial of that by the end of this movie. Like, again, that great scene where he can't finish the prayer. He knows he's a hypocrite and that he's never going to be able to forgive Alex or whoever kidnapped his daughter. Even though by that point he knows it wasn't Alex.
Yeah.
I love that about it. That's just really, really well written character stuff, I gotta admit. And I'm not gonna be gentle, so I'm gonna circle back to just, this isn't necessarily a problem, just like a big question I have. What happens to Terrence Howard and his wife after this movie?
He goes
That's
and
one of
he
those
works for
things.
Tony Stark, and then he becomes War Machine. Then he gets fired before he can play that role.
That's one of the things towards the end that, like, I had a question of, but I was happy that I had that as a question, because, like, these two know what Jackman did all the way throughout the movie. And so they get their kid back. So on a technical level, they should be the most happy. But at the same time, now they have to sit there with their neighbors and their friends, like, knowing full well something that they probably can't say. I don't know. I think, like, there's an interesting emotional baggage that those two are going to have to deal with all the way through, so no one comes out of it clean.
Mm-hmm. And I just sit there and wonder, like, well, did they leave any DNA evidence at the apartment? They had to be checking for that stuff.
Probably.
I mean, like, Alex probably told them what happened, that both of those two were there.
It's a weird thing where, like, Terrence Howard's character is more complicit than his wife is. But, like, the moment you divulge anything, you've divulged too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, even if one of them gets caught, they're both going to get caught, and if one of them wants to rat the other one out, they both go down. It's almost a prisoner's dilemma. It's so clever.
What the fuck? I thought I was having like an acid trip there for a second.
I'm sure all the people listening on headphones really enjoyed that.
I'm sure they did. We should have a warning that says turn up the volume.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. I just had that lingering question. It's that John Green thing of what happens to these characters after the movie is over. Like that. It's funny. We had that whole conversation of what happens to Hugh Jackman after the credits roll, and the answer is nothing. The movie is over. He's a fictional character.
That's what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I just lingering thought I had. Wanted to make sure I got it out there. I don't know. I'm all done with stuff to say. Rasco, did you have anything else? Steve, did you?
I don't really have anything else to say.
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Rasco got kind of sidelined on his own topic here. This is mostly Steve and I.
Sorry, guys. Been sleeping all
It's
day.
cool.
He's
It's
still
cool.
in shock from Logan.
Oh yeah. Horrifying.
Gotcha. Well, Steve, what are we going to be talking about next time?
Should we rate this first?
Oh, shit. Fuck, yeah. That's why I keep you around, Steve.
I'm a helper.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go first so no one can steal mine. I give this movie 2.5 out of 5 shower torture cells.
Oh, that's so unsettling.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and go next. I give this movie 4 out of 5 baskets full of snakes.
I'm gonna give this movie 4. Fuck you, Steve. You took my thing.
You had a real delayed reaction to that.
I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 maze necklaces.
Okay. Alright. Okay, now, Steve, what are we going to be talking about next time?
Okay, I checked the playlist. I don't think you've covered this, so I'm going to go for it. If not, I may have to back up. But I would really curious if we wanted to sit here and talk about defining genres.
Fuck.
Whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, how you do it, does it matter to you? Should it matter?
No, I think that's a new topic for us then.
Yeah, because I've been thinking a lot about that, like particularly with Logan, where I'm like, there are things that we expect of a genre, but if they do none of that, is it still a genre movie?
Gotcha. Okay. Alright, cool. That sounds like a topic then.
Cool.
Well, see you guys next time then. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the Exile.
And I am the Senpai.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.